Hey, hope you're enjoying Friday evening. It is 7 p.m. The weekend's just about to start and we're going to do a tutorial. So this one is actually based on Ducky's 3D one. So we'll go to Ducky 3D. And we go to his channel. Somewhere here, there's one. Rotating text, this one. So we're going to create this. We'll be creating something like this, a bit right. There we go. So we're going to create this in real time with Ventuz. We'll try to get some of these shadows and reflections, like the soft shadow in there and the reflections in here. So let's get started. So I can show you here earlier. So this is just a really simple version, but you get the idea. We'll create this, and this is all editable, you know, so it could be real talk. Text will update on that view and spinning, and you got shadows and reflections and all sorts. So anyway, I'll close this. I won't save it. We'll be recreating this from scratch. So creating new scene, empty scene. So what we need is some assets. So we will need to jump into a 3D application. I'll be using Blender, which is open source and free. You can use Cinema 4D, Maya, 3ds, whatever you prefer to get your assets in. So we'll take this cube, standard cube, scale it, get nice shape, whatever you like, doesn't matter. Go for something like this, and say Control A, apply transform, then I'm going to hit tab, I'm going to select the edges. I'll right click, say bevel edges, and then you know you get the bevel options, and then I want just these segments on the bevel options. Something like this. Maybe I want it a bit more there. I'm gonna say shade smooth, so it's a bit more nicer. And I'll say, okay, I like that cube. Yeah, this is the one we can use. I'm gonna apply material to this, so it's already got one. I'm gonna say, okay, this is black. Just go into material view. Choose a nice lighting environment. Okay. It's kind of there. We'll delete these materials anyway in what's it called, Ventuz, and we use the Ventuz materials. But it will import all of these most of these settings anyway. But we'll recreate that. It's just so you can see anyway. I'm waffling on a bit. What I want to do is select the face. I want to select one face, and what we'll do is duplicate. So we've got one face. I'm going to say Shift D, right click, and then I'll move this forward just a tiny bit so it doesn't clip in. And then after, I'll split this after. So as well as that, I'll do is assign a new material. Assign, so I can select that and split it off after we do the twist. So I'm going to go to modifiers. We're going to say subdivision, simple. I'm going to set this to 4 on the viewport and set that to simple. We're going to add a simple deform, and then we're going to say twist on the y-axis. I'm going to say 70. There we go, and I'm happy with that look. Once you're happy with the look of your twist, now you can change this, or you can do whatever you like. I kind of like the look of this, and what I want to do is apply those modifiers. It's not really a Blender tutorial. They're pretty good tutorials on YouTube and Blender and whatever softwares you want. But yeah, there we go. So I'm just creating an asset anyway. So I've got that, and then I want to select this and extract. So selection, there we go. So now I have that face separate and the cube separate. Now all I have to do is export. So file. Does that look right? Yeah, it looks alright. So I'm going to select these, go file, export, GLTF, and I'll just put in my documents and it's called twisted, export geometry, that should be done. Now you can close your 3D application or minimize it if you want to jump back in later. You can jump back in and do some tweaks and go back and forth. If you have Cinema 4D, you could do the live link. Makes tweaking models easier. Yeah, I wish there was more integration with Blender, because Blender is quite cool. So if there was a plugin for Blender, that would be fantastic. Because it's open source as well. A lot of people use it. But anyway, let's get onto this. So we've got this, and we want to bring in our file. So we've got the twisted file here, and we're going to bring in our assets. There we go. I'll rotate this 90 degrees and scale this up. We have a cube, and like I said, we're going to get rid of these materials. So I'm going to control delete these materials. I'm also going to delete the geometry import because it's already imported in, so we don't need it in the tree anymore. I'm going to drop in new color. So color for the cube and a color for the font face. This is what the font's going to sit on. So I'm just going to call this font, and this one is cube. So the cube, we can of course give it a color. Just do 31 3 times, and the color will be no light. So there's no light on it. And then we're going to do we want no light? Let's leave it as a font. We can. It doesn't matter. We can play around with it. But the main thing is we want to do texture. We want to say base with alpha. On the texture loader, we're going to go here to texture properties, and we're going to change this to default. Now it's going to expose it. It's going to disappear here. That's absolutely fine. And what we're going to do is expose this texture out on this layer here. I'm going to rename our layer cube layer. So we're going to be working with some layers. So make sure I'm just going to call it cube layer, and I'm going to create a new layer, new 3D layer, standard. I'm going to turn off our cube layer, just switch it off so we can focus on this layer, and I'm going to call this txt layer. So this will be our text, of course, and we're going to go to axis. We're going to get 3D text 3D block text, and what we're going to do is go into the alignment, center text, and of course we're going to put in some text in there. So we're going to call this, I don't know, hello world. It could be whatever we want, to be honest. Hello world. And you can choose your font, so you can go edit, choose a font, so find a font you like. Doesn't matter, to be honest, you know, it's really up to you. I'm going to go for a nice bold one, find one. I'm a bit picky. There we go. I'll choose this font, import into project, then you save it, and there you go. You have your font ready. So what I do want to do is scale this up so it's slightly bigger. Happy with that. I'm going to over exaggerate the Z depth by just scaling it. Okay. I'll also drop a light in here, directional light. Maybe light this up a tiny bit, you know, just get a bit of some highlights there and some. You can play around with that and put a material on this and all sorts. So what we're going to do is add a text to what's it, shrink to fit on the text. So we're going to get text effects and drop this on, and we're going to say shrink to fit text effects. What we're going to do is type in some extra characters, additional characters, and as we type in, you can see the shrink to fit is working. Now you can turn this proportional or not proportional, and you can change the width. So we want to change the width so it fills the screen. And when we reduce the characters, it will still fit to screen, which is what we want, which is perfect. So it doesn't go off screen. Okay. So now on this text layer, we want to do just a few settings. It's really simple. We're just going to click on the layer itself, where it says layout full size. We're going to change this to off-screen render target. Next, we're going to turn our cube layer back on. We're going to select our cube layer and our text layer. And where we exposed on the cube layer the texture, that we're going to just drop it and link it to our text layer. And as you can see, it now is mapped onto our cube. Now we want to go to our cube layer here, and we want to choose the font that font material, and then we want to change and fix our UV mapping. Now you could, if you do run across something like that, you could go back into your 3D application, you know, go into UV mapping and then fix the UV mapping. For example, I'll just do quickly Peck Island or something, but you can adjust your UV maps and then it'll come in correct, or you can easily, you know, just go here, UV's 2D mapping, UV 0, and we'll just adjust it here. So we'll fix the UV mapping inside Ventuz, which is not a big problem, to be honest, and for what we're doing. And I'll scale the X down and just move the Y position. Yeah, and then it's just about scaling it down and getting it right. Once you're happy with that, you can go onto your sorry, click on that material. I'm going to just say no light, and now the font's easier to read. And now I'm going to rotate this. We have the font, which is cool, right? So, well, right now we can't edit the text, but we have to keep on switching back to this layer and, you know, editing the text. So what we want to do is click on our font here, expose that text out of this layer, and we want to go into this layer. We're going to add a string in here. This will be our string, and expose that string out. Select both our layers. So from our cube layer we have a string exposed, and we want to say, okay, this is coming, we're going to read it. Sorry, we want the text layer, from the text layer to read our string. So we're just going to select and just drop over the string, hover over the string, and they'll connect. So string value to text. So now we can go in here, we can stay inside our cube layer, and then we can edit the text, and we can be, you know, twisted cube, and there you go, it says twisted cube. Okay, so right, you may notice that I only did one face. Now I could have exported each face as well, or now I could, well, but what I'll do is just link here. I'm gonna do this 4 times. Give it a second. So if I go right here, or I can do more. Say I want a link and I want instance, I need another 3 more. So 1, 2, maybe I've got 1 extra. So I don't need this one. I'm gonna delete that. There we go. I only need 4. And then what I'm just gonna do is add an axis in front of these, and I'll just rotate these. So as you can see, it can be 90. Then the next one would be 180, and then the next one will be 270. So now we have 1 on each side of the face, and it's just an instance. There you go. Now of course you can export, you know, you can export all 4 faces and then just have the UVs overlapping, and it's just one material. There's so many ways you can do it. I didn't want to spend too much time on the Blender side, so you know, we can focus more just on the Ventuz side. But yeah, but you get, yeah, you can do it either way. Yeah, we've got a twisted cube with some text on it. It's looking nice. But let's add some nice glossiness to it. As you can see, it's already got some sort of specular, you know, it's got some specular highlights on here. We're going to change it to a font. You know, you can play around with the specular mapping. What I'm going to do is actually change this to a no light. It's just completely flat. There we go. Make it kind of black. 2, 2, 2, 2. 3 2s. And what I'm going to do is just go to texture, oh sorry, material. Get a solid color and place it in front of the entire group. And here I want to add a decal. So I'm going to change texture to decal, texture, I'm going to get a nice shiny one. There's lots of, you know, you get lots of textures. whatever you want as a reflection. I'm gonna go for this. I've used this in many videos. It's just a square and a circle. When I blurred it, made it in Paint, Microsoft Paint. You know, you can make it in whatever you want. I'm gonna change the reflection, so mapping to wall space reflections, and I'm gonna change the wrap to simple. Also, the simple to wrap, from tablet to wrap. And we can scale this. As you see, we've got all this, you know, cool reflections, and you can scale it in the X and the Y. So you're happy with it. And what you do is just change the opacity, so you can knock the opacity down so it's not as strong. Just tweak those reflections until you're happy with the, you know, the look of it, look and feel of that reflection. I'm kind of liking the look of that. I might change it later, but for now I'll leave it as it is. It looks nice and glossy with our 3D text that we can edit in real time, you know, so we can edit that text, you know, like I said, real time. And if you wanted to export that, expose other like settings of the font, you could export. You can expose these out of that layer, so you don't have to even go back in here. Or you can, you know, if you wanted to expose the line spacing or the cloning or the character spacing, you know, it's up to you. And then, you know, you have a lot of options. You can put material on here, have a different color text, you know, it's really up to you what you choose to do with that. Anyway, let's get back to this cube layer. So we got our cube, and then say we want it, you know, we want a ground, so we can have a nice soft shadow that reacts. So let's get a axis. Sorry, I was waffling on a bit. Scale this up. We have a nice plane. I'm going to say -90 on the rotation X and bring down the Y till we see it. Well, it might be 90 rather than -90. Yep. And it the other way. I'm going to scale the width of that, so it just fills the entire screen there. And you might want to push it back in the Y. It's entirely up to you. Now we need a light, so I'm going to take a directional light and apply it to the scene. Surround. So on the shadow, I want to turn the shadow map on, so now we have a shadow, which is kind of cool, right? Now this, I don't want it to cast the shadow, so I'm going to add a material. I'm going to add a color on here, on the floor. I'm going to name this floor, which we know which is what. And on here I want to say it receives it. I want to receive it, but I don't want it to cast anything. So when I move the light around, it won't cast like some giant plane anywhere else, you know, it'll just be the cube, which is cool. Now, this looks very hard. It is a very hard shadow. Now you can reduce the opacity, but it doesn't look soft. So what we're going to do is we're going to just use some filter effects. We're going to drop a filter effect on that layer. Boom. I'm going to say blur. I'm just going to blur that. And you can choose how much you want to blur it by. There we go. Now we've got a soft shadow, and it's actually a real shadow, and it's just the effect, post effect. But as you can see, it is reacted. You know, that's one way to fake soft shadows. Choosing the filter effects. Just be aware of the performance and stuff using the effects and stuff. But yeah, for something like this, you know, it's fine. There you go. The light. There we go. Now we can add another. We can add like a wall in the background. We're almost done. As you can see, it wasn't too complicated. Once you have your assets there, and I'll just drop a color in here. Push this back. This is the wall. Of course, I don't want this to cast a shadow. Again, in the shadow options, I'm going to turn cast shadow off. I want it to receive shadows, that's fine. So, you know, it's just a wall. There we go. And maybe I want this in front of the floor. No, actually I want it behind the floor. So, there we go. We'll change the material colors. So, no light. And I'm going to do gradient. So texture, base. I'm going to go loader. And I'm going to say 1D gradient. And choose something like this. Of course, you can play around with the UV mapping. So 3D mapping 0. And you can, you know, scale it on the Y. And you know, play around with that. And you can of course tweak the gradient itself. But that looks kind of cool. That kind of works. Nothing fancy, right? There we go. Then we could have this rotating, so we can just use a mover. So you can find the mover in here if you want to drag the mover in, or you're on the value as well. You got the little squiggly button right here. Use your hover over it, and you can say, okay, I want to rotate this minus 90 clockwise or whatever. Slow that down. Now we've got this rotating text. But anytime hopefully that was useful. Of course, you can add a reflection plane, so you can make the floor more reflective. So I'll just get another floor, add a reflection, like you could use the what's it, mirror effect mirror, blur that reflection if you wanted, or make it sharp. You get the idea. Hope you enjoyed that. It's useful. Enjoy your weekend. Be good to each other. If you can hit that subscribe, it helps me. Just, you know, I want to try hit that 1K subscribe and try to make videos more often. Some will be Blender, some will be maybe Ventuz or combination like we just did. Yeah, but enjoy your day, morning, evening, or night. Bye bye.